Wallingford Instructional Committee for May 6th to order. And before we get started, I just want to thank all the people in the audience that came to speak to us about all the different curriculums. I know it's a night out for you, so thank you. Remember, the second thing on the agenda is acceptance of minutes of the Instructional Committee minutes on February 4th. Do I have any changes from anybody?
No, not for me.
We're okay? Okay. No, I know that. See no discussion. All those in favor of accepting these minutes, say aye.
Nope, no, take consensus.
I'll take consensus, sorry.
No worries.
Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Russ?
Yes.
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 And yes. Okay. All right. Next item is discussion and possible consensus on the approval of the 2019 Middle School Youth Risk Behavior Survey. And Tony Loomis, can you come up and give us a little overview and then take questions?
So, as you already know, at the high school level, for the past 6 years, every other year, we've provided the high school youth risk survey, and we've garnered a lot of information, valuable information from that data, and we've used that data in multiple ways. And we found that the community is very interested in this information also. And the CDC, a while ago, had come out with a middle school youth risk survey. It is developmentally appropriate for the middle school age group. It's shorter, and there's been some interest and some inquiring about potentially utilizing this survey at the middle school level. And so again, it comes from the CDC. We would provide this survey to all middle school students, grades 6th, 7th, and 8th. And we would try and have it coincide and happen on the same day that we do the high school youth risk survey. And so it would all be done at once, and it would provide us valuable information. I was asked recently to speak down at Southern Connecticut State University for Dr. Bonnie Edmondson. Dr. Bonnie Edmondson is the retired health consultant at the State Department of Education. And she asked me to speak about things that are going on here in Wallingford. And one of the items that I spoke to was the high school youth risk survey. And not just Bonnie, but her entire graduate students, it was a graduate course, they were all extremely impressed and I would say jealous at what we have going on here. And I see this as expanding upon that. And something that I shared with Dr. Edmondson and the graduate students was how the high school youth risk survey has impacted our curriculum, and specifically how we are expanding, and that's going to be coming to you next month, our plan for next year, and having 2 health courses based on the results from the survey. And the content is specifically tied to the results that we are getting. And very, very few districts have specific curriculum that's tied to exactly what their students are doing. And that's where we see this middle school survey. That's what we see this doing for us. Our health teachers, Chrissy Rich over at DAG, and Scott Robinson over at Moran, who is the teacher of the year for Moran, they are both behind this 100%. They have read through these questions. I asked them to vet this, to look through this prior to, and they're really excited for this opportunity.
Thank you. Questions, Ms. Havlick?
Yes. So all the questions that are on this survey came from the CDC?
Correct.
Okay. And how many middle schools in the state of Connecticut are administering this survey?
You know, I'm not 100% sure. Recently at a Connecticut physical education conference, I was approached by other wellness and health and PE coordinators, again, kind of jealous of what we have going on here in Wallingford. And they're wondering why we have such a strong program and what can they do differently. And it's items like this that that I talk about and that I share. And so I don't have a specific number for you. I can certainly get that to you, but
How do we compare on the high school survey? Would we get an inkling of,
I'm not sure if I understand the question.
since we administer the high school survey,
Mhm.
I'm just wondering how this compares, how many other participants in the state?
Got it, okay.
how many other
Now I
participants?
understand. Thank you.
I could get specific numbers from Celeste George from the State Department of Public Health. Typically, it's a survey that they send out and they ask a random selection of districts to complete. We have taken that to the next level where we, as you know, do this every other year and really garner a lot from the data that we collect. And that's how, one of the main reasons that I hope we can do this going forward. We're not just giving this survey and saying, okay, let's see where we're at. We're taking it, and then again, Chrissy Rich and Scott Robinson, they're gonna, and myself will go down through the results and say, all right, we have to emphasize vaping more. And you may have noticed that there's questions on about vaping in here, which was really important for us to have, for example. And so again, we are using this to drive not just curriculum, but other programming
Right.
in the school and throughout the community too.
So for this age group, do you anticipate concerns about some of the questions that are on the survey from parents?
Yes, I do. There's a few questions that I was thinking of either deleting or rewording. One in particular happened to deal with,
Give us the number.
I believe it is question number 31. So I have some ideas on softening the language for that. But that was the only one that really worried me or concerned me as far as what parents would react. Again, this was looked at by our health educators that are the experts at that level, and they did feel it was developmentally appropriate. But that's one of the questions that I would like to adjust. I'm hesitant to adjust too many because I want to keep the questions as true as possible to the CDC results so we can really compare and get more valuable data. A few of the questions that I thought were either redundant or not necessary. Question 25, I think I would like to get rid of.
Yeah, I think
Prior
that's
to that, it asked a number of questions about smoking, and it already asked the questions about alternative tobacco products. So personally, I think question 25 is not necessary. And then questions 38 and 39, and that also ties into a concern that parents may have. Questions 38 and questions 39 are about body weight. And the following, the questions that follow that are about physical activity. We are interested in that. But I don't like the emphasis on body weight. It's not a healthy measure of one's wellness and overall well-being, body weight. And so I think we're sending the wrong message. So I would eliminate those out of sensitivity for our students.
Well, do you have alternative wording that you would suggest, or?
The concepts that we talk about instead of body weight are percent body fat, percentage of body fat. And that's more of a concept that we focus on at the high school level. So it's a little above where these students are at. At the middle school level, in our health and our PE classes, we focus on 4 components of health. We focus on muscular endurance, muscular strength, cardiovascular endurance, and flexibility. And so we want our students to keep those 4 items in mind. And I think what would we get out of asking those two questions. We would get a lot of
I think you'd get body image for 38.
Body image.
So for 38, I think, okay, 39, I don't mean to usurp you.
No,
Karen.
well, that's fine.
But I mean, I'm not sure about 39, but 38, I think, speaks to body image and how that person views themselves. I think there's value to that question.
Then, in that case, then we need to reword it.
Okay, I'm open
and
to that.
specifically mention, how do you feel about your body? I feel good about the way I look, because just because a student says would answer maybe they are slightly overweight for question 38, maybe they're not. Maybe they actually are right on target.
But it speaks to their personal image of themselves.
Yes.
And that's more what I'm focused in on. And I worry about, especially at that, middle school and high school age, where it's not reality, it's what they see of themselves. And that to me is almost scarier than what is reality, because if they have, I'm not in the medical field, I am not a school psychologist, I don't work with kids, so, this is just being a mom
Yeah.
and, raising kids, and I had boys, but I still think it speaks to what you think your image is, and we don't know if it's accurate or not.
Exactly.
We
and-
don't,
and-
and I appreciate that we don't really know, because, you're not gonna ask them what they,
Right.
their measurements, but, I still think it could call out that at that young age, if they don't feel good about, or they're not comfortable with their
I agree that
image.
that would be valuable.
So maybe that's a better way to
Yeah.
word it.
I
and
think
I'm
so,
okay
because the
with
way
that.
it's worded, no matter how they answer, I don't think that's going to give us actionable data. And so if we reword it to, again, focus on that body image,
Yeah,
I would be.
and I'm okay with rewording it,
Yeah.
but I do think there's value to understanding how any middle schooler perceives themselves as far
Certainly.
as what they think is a good weight, bad weight, whatever, or if they even care. I'm not sure. Again, I'm not trying to word it, but I think there's value.
I was going to say, I just want to add real quick to what
Yeah,
you're just
please.
saying, is poor body image can deal with social, emotional issues, which can cause people to do risky behavior. So I do
Right.
think it's an important question. All right.
Could I just,
Oh,
I
you were
just have,
still in the
I
middle.
just have
Yeah, this is
one
her
other.
question. Sorry,
I just
Karen.
have one other. So, if parents hear about the survey and whatever, and do they have an opportunity to peruse the survey? What is, how is this done again?
That's not
Refresh my
settled
memory.
just yet, but there's two thought processes on it. Number one is, yes, we'll open it up to any parent and they can come check it out. And that's for transparency and to help parents feel okay with this process. The other thought process, and this is personally where I'm at, and maybe we could find a middle ground. No, I would be hesitant to have parents be able to look at it, because I wouldn't want them to coach their kid in any certain way. I want the truest information that comes from it. And having you all screen it, having the health educators at the school screen it, I think that message should be shared with parents prior to this occurring, number one. And we're going to prepare the students in both physical education and in health class. It can't strictly be done in health class because they only see a third of the students at a time. And so in both health and in physical education, we'll see every kid. We'll kind of soften this for them and explain it to them, along with the facilitators or administrators of the survey giving a little spiel right beforehand. But leading up to it, we can certainly soften it. And as it says at the beginning, and it will be reiterated, the survey itself is totally voluntary, and any question that a student feels uncomfortable with, they don't have to answer. And so the parents will be certainly made aware that it's voluntary, and if you're uncomfortable, then you can, and maybe we have a waiver that the parents sign.
Right, because this is a younger age group than we've
absolutely.
surveyed in the past,
And
is
there
my
is-
concern. And
Yep.
I'm just wondering, I mean, students mature at different rates, and some might have a little bit more knowledge about certain subjects than others, and parents might be concerned about,
Especially the parents of those sixth graders. There's such a big
That's-
difference between that sixth grade and the eighth grade. And a different maturity level. And so we will certainly be sensitive to that. Again, the information that we can garner from this, especially I'm thinking of my health educators at the middle school level, they're so excited for this. We know it's very sensitive, and we're gonna ensure that parents are made aware, and we can share as much as possible with them without giving, again, the questions away, because we don't want that to have.
And I understand you don't want to
impact
skew
on
the
that.
results,
Yeah.
but also, I mean, as parents of the younger folks that are going to be surveyed in this, the sixth graders, I think parents might be interested in getting just an overview and
And
some information about
I
it.
mentioned we could do yes, or we could do no, or maybe find some middle ground. The middle ground, I thought, is perhaps we have a hard copy in with the health educator, and parents are welcome to come to the school. So we make them do the legwork if they're that concerned.
Right.
You can come to the school and you can look at it with the health educator and
Right.
go over it. And then my message to the health educators would be, after you go through it, you make sure that it's clear that our expectation of the parent is to not coach their child after looking through it. So that's another possibility.
Right, I just want parents to be aware of,
Yeah.
Mr. Votto?
thanks.
Mr. Votto?
Just for this, I was going to bring up the stuff you just said.
Okay.
I think-
I really believe parents should have the opportunity to look at it.
Yes.
I don't think it should go home. I think what you might want to do when you inform them of this survey is perhaps just mention those topics that are touched upon.
Okay.
There you go.
That this is what's on the survey. It deals with drugs, it deals with bullying, and if you're, like you said, have the health educator have it available to them and let them know they can come into the school and look at it, maybe the guidance counselor. I agree with everything you just said.
Good.
But I do think parents need to know the topics that are
Yep.
on here, and for them to have the, first of all, they know that the kids it's a volunteer thing, and number two, they can opt out. They can tell their teachers or whatever.
So I'm making my notes now, alert the parents of the survey, of the topics, and of the opt-out possibilities, both for the entire survey or the
of
individuals.
a copy
Yes.
somewhere.
Okay.
But I do agree, I don't think it should go home, because
No,
that could
no,
skew
no.
things.
All right, Mrs. McKay?
Yeah, a couple things. But also to go one step further, and I think you caught it, Tony, but I just want to make sure that not only could parents know that their child could opt out 100% or just
Yeah.
opt out per question,
Yes.
I think is an important point. So I wanted to go back to, Kieran was kind of going down a path about the CDC and that this is their survey, and I do appreciate that. And I think that's important for parents to know that this, whether you like the CDC or not, could be a different thing, but it isn't just a random survey that's floating around out there.
Yep.
So Kieran asked specifically about schools, middle schools in Connecticut. I want to broaden that up a little bit. Do you know? So for the CDC has endorsed this survey. Is it utilized? Have nationally, has anybody utilized this? So
Yes.
what does that look like?
It is utilized nationally, but I do not have the
Yeah.
numbers for you.
And that's fine. I don't mean to put you on the
apologize.
spot.
No,
But,
I will certainly get that for you and look that up. And
I'm not even sure, what the relevance is, but I'm curious, again, because I guess I would want to reassure, whatever information I could give to parents that, that this isn't.
like it's done in 47 of the
What
50 states.
Yeah,
and
I
certainly.
feel like I want to provide them as much information that this has been utilized. Their children aren't kind of a guinea pig for this. I
Yeah.
mean, how has this been vetted by the CDC, that this is endorsed by the CDC? I guess maybe it's more historical, and I don't need to get in the weeds about how many states or how many communities, but, even if I understand why does the CDC endorse this, and how did it evolve to this point that this would be, if a district wanted to support it, you know, why this is the survey to support. And so I could even speak intelligently if a community member approached me, that I think that would be helpful in that regard. So just I guess more background information about why the CDC endorses, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Mr. Ross?
Yeah, I have just a couple questions. Question number 26. Have you ever had a drink of alcohol other than a few sips? And then 27 follows, how old were you when you first tried it? But no place in here, and I think this information is important, do you currently use alcohol? And the question's not in there. They can say, yeah, I tried it when I was 13, but I think what we want to know is it's not as important when they first tried it. I want to know how many students are currently using alcohol.
And I
Get that.
my only response to that is, you may recall for the high school risk behavior survey, it does get into the specifics of that.
But
And so my only thought is maybe they took that out, and I'm trying to guess what they were doing, but maybe they took that out to lessen the severity and the intensity of what was being asked. I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
I understand it's a hard
Yeah.
question, but I think we have to ask the hard questions. I think there are middle school students that are using alcohol, and I
Yeah, but I'm
think we
not sure
need
how
to
much
know
we can
that.
change the CDC's survey if
Well,
we're utilizing it.
He's pulling out.
We
he's-
could add a question, and
You
then we wouldn't have other data to compare that question to until a few years
fair.
down the road, if we were to continue to do this like we are with the high school survey, where we start comparing it to our own data, 6 years down the road or so.
And in question number 31, you're talking about taking that out, and I would want to know if they're using cocaine.
Specifically, my thoughts for adjusting the language was, have you ever used any form of cocaine, parentheses, such as powder or crack? I thought leaving freebase out of there was, made it a little more developmentally appropriate for that level. I don't think they need to be told or explained or have questions about what freebase cocaine is. And so I think having, again, the powder or the crack would be sufficient. And that was my idea
Oh, I
for
thought you
adjusting
were
the
ta-
language.
Okay, I thought you were taking the question out.
If this was one that the board was sensitive about, I could bend in that way, but again, I didn't specifically wasn't going to remove it. I was thinking for this one, just adjust the language.
Okay, because I personally feel it's critical that we know, are
Yeah.
they currently abusing drugs, alcohol, or
Yeah.
anything like that? And that's missing in this question.
Okay.
Okay, Ms. Raccio?
Thank you.
Okay, so question number 44, that seems like something that could just be calculated. How many days do you go to PE class? I don't see the value in getting that data. And question number 49, describe your grades in school, A, B, C, D. The sixth graders have never received letter grades. So that one I don't really see the value in. When I reviewed this, I actually looked at this in conjunction when I sat down with the high school survey and with this survey. And one area that I just see totally missing from this survey that I thought gave us, well, there's two different things, but there's one area that's totally missing, and it's the environment and connectedness amongst high school students. We got a lot of value out of those questions. We asked about rules and consequences at home. We asked specifically about whether or not there was an adult in the school that they could talk to. And we were impressed with ninth grade, and I only had the 2015 survey, that's all that was online. I didn't have the 2017 results, but it went from 60% in ninth grade up to 76% in 12th grade. So I saw that as a good trend,
Yeah.
and I'd like to know, as obviously I would think sixth graders feel less connected to somebody in the school, and I'd like to see that higher by the time they get to eighth grade. So I think looking at those family environment and connectedness questions belonging to a school. Do your parents ask where you're going? How many times a week do you have a family meal? Those are things that we really did get value in. We actually, as a board, added those.
Sure.
They weren't in the first survey, but then we ended up adding them in to get more value and more information. A couple of the other areas, I know when Mr. Turner presented, I don't know if it was the 2017 or 2015 results, he and Celeste had described gambling as a gateway to other risky behavior. I looked at, again, the 2015 survey, and 27% of the ninth graders indicated that they were involved in some type of gambling, but we don't even ask that at the middle school level. So I'd like to know if they're doing it 27% in ninth grade, when did it start? Because that would be helpful information to include in a middle school curriculum. Because it didn't just, I would
Yeah.
assume, start in ninth
Agreed.
grade. So where do we address that in the middle school curriculum?
I could certainly compose a few questions, and I would word them very similarly to the high school level, tied to school connectedness or family connectedness, and also the gambling issue. I'd be hesitant to add too much because I want to think about the implementation of this and having the least impact on instruction as possible. And
I get it, but we also have 11 questions between vaping and smoking.
Yes, yep.
So, and I support those areas.
Right.
I'm not suggesting that, but I mean, if you're limited to a certain number of questions, maybe we can fine tune those or something, because I do think family environment, connectedness, you know, if
And I
gambling
looked
is a
at the number,
gateway,
for example, the number of smoking questions, that doesn't seem to be as much of an issue anymore. So do we need all of the ones we had in there? And each question is unique and different and hits upon a different data point. But I also see your point, okay, maybe we do shift through some of those and eliminate some of those. And you had already given 2 suggestions on questions to get rid of, and that would open some space also.
Right.
As far as implementing, I need obviously to talk to the administration at both middle schools, but I envision this being done, taking about 20 minutes, which could be completed in a advisory period, and it seems like the schools are open to advisory lessons, and so perhaps this could be an advisory lesson that we have.
And the other area that I did notice from the 2015 survey was cutting or burning, and there was 17% that indicated self-harm. So again, I wouldn't think that that just starts in ninth grade, but if we knew, if we had any kind of
It goes to body
benchmark,
image too.
Yeah.
That could possibly tie back to that body image.
that could very well, Roxanne, tie back to that. So,
Okay.
again, I just looked at it side by side, and I think that the value in having 3 surveys done at the high school is really significant, and I would just want to maximize that by, if we see trends in the high school, let's try to identify when they started in the middle school.
Yeah.
Because we even have a better opportunity to get into
Absolutely.
the classes as opposed to just certain courses during a 4-year period.
Thank you for that feedback.
Thank you.
Ms. McKay?
Yeah, I'm just curious, when, does the CDC give us guidelines as far as how many questions we can either change, omit, add, where it no longer becomes a CDC survey? You know what I'm asking?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're
Because
asking.
I want to be careful about that too.
You know, we have adjusted the high school survey a lot more
Yeah.
than the proposed ones for
Was that a
this.
CDC that too,
Um,
Tom?
Originally,
It
yes,
was?
and that was kind of absorbed and taken over by the state of Connecticut, and they put their own little twist on it, and then we took it and put our own little. So by the
Well,
time
Celeste could
we've gotten
provide
it-
value in that,
exactly,
I think.
and so I would look for guidance from
Yeah,
her.
okay.
Specifically on that.
Because I say it just publicly, you know, for board members, but also for, if anybody's watching, that we are, because you kind of want to utilize the value, being under the umbrella of, I would think, of something that's CDC approved, but you don't want to change it, so you want to stay within
Right.
those parameters.
Right.
That's all I was thinking. Thank you.
And then once we present the results, we want to be able to tie back and say, all right, these
Right, comparison
these
factors,
questions
yeah,
we
whether
can
state-
reference nationally or
State or
the
nationally, that's
state,
right.
and these questions we
Yeah,
are
that's-
just finding out for the first time, and we have to wait until,
Right, that's an
Exactly.
important point to, and that's fine to
Mm-hmm.
tailor it to our own, but then we do limit a
Certainly.
little bit upfront what the results are.
Yep.
But we set our own new standard. Thank you.
Okay. All right, I have a few comments too, and questions. It's tough to go last. Anyway, first thing I want to just kind of give a little history. Ms. Havlick asked about how often these are done and who does them. And I just want to let you know that Wallingford's the only place that does every student, every grade, each time we do it. But for many, many, many years, all the years I worked here, they've sent them out and asked districts to do it, both at middle school and high school, different ones, and districts have said yes. So the surveying aspect has been going on for at least 20 years. You can get probably from Bonnie Edmondson the exact amount that does it, because not every district says yes.
Yeah.
And we didn't always say yes every time it came to us originally, just so you know that. The other thing is, I just wanted to say, I'm going to put you on the spot over here. I talked to you about what happened in Cheshire. Can you kind of just let them know that?
So I don't know if it was the CDC survey, but as a parent of a 7th grader, I received multiple emails and phone calls telling me that we were going to have a survey for risky behavior at the middle school. I had the opportunity as a parent to go to the school to view the survey if I so desired. I think it's a great idea to list the topics. My school system did not do that, but I do think that's important so people have a general idea, which may prompt some people to go in to look at the survey and then other people to decide not to. And the day my son took it, I happened to be home when he got home from school, and it was a great conversation starter. He remembered some of the questions vividly. And we had a very nice, talk. Mom, I had to take this survey, and these are the questions they asked. But for some kids, and one of my children is on the quiet side. Without the survey, he wouldn't have brought up these topics. So it was a nice opportunity for us to have a real, specific conversation about some of the things that at his age he will be experiencing either through talk on the school bus, talk in the classroom, or otherwise. So it was a good, opportunity for us. I've yet to see the results of that survey, but, maybe they'll come soon enough. But he took it around January, February, I want to say, which gave his grade level as a 7th grader is the first grade of that school. So it gave them a little bit of time to kind of acclimate to the school and to the teachers and to the newness of that level, which I think is also important and something to consider in terms of administration of the survey.
Have we given consideration to that?
Again, my thought was to align it with the high school survey, which is typically done in October, which might be a little early and might be something to reconsider and reflect on.
I didn't mean to cut you off.
It is a totally different survey, so I could see the continuing with the high school administration in the fall, in October-ish, but then pushing the middle school administration back a little bit. Obviously, compiling the results, we would get that on a different time frame, but that's okay.
The other thing I just wanted to add too is if you're worried about the CDC survey and adding questions, we can always asterisk the ones that we added.
Right. Well, we would certainly do that, again, for reporting purposes afterwards. We can say, and maybe this is set up by sections. Maybe we have one section that is strictly questions that we have come up with. So it's the last section, and it's question 49 through 55. And we can separate it, but regardless, yeah, we will know exactly before, during, and after which questions are true to the CDC survey and which questions we have either modified or added.
Mr. Votto?
Yeah, I taught middle school for 45 years, or not maybe not that many, but pretty close.
So you're
Well, I was,
lying?
no, not 45 years. And
It's being recorded. Come on
I
now.
think, I just told you about my age. And middle school, I think, is probably one of the worst group of years for kids because they are in the middle. That's why they call it a middle school, I think. They're like the middle child. I think they're experimenting. They're trying to fit into a group of kids. They want to be accepted. Risky behavior starts being experimented with. I think this is great to have this survey. You know, when you get to high school, you usually cling to people more like yourself. You know, if you're an artsy person, you start making friends with those people. But in middle school, you really don't know who your friends are and who you should be friends with, which is a stronger argument for the survey. However, do we care if it's CDC survey or our own? Why do we care?
The
I mean, I
CDC
think this
survey lends credibility.
You can, but to me, if there are things in that high school survey that we think should
Yeah.
be brought up in this survey so we could see the process or the progress, I say, who cares? I think we do it for ourselves, and we do it for our own kids. Does it have to be CDC based? It could be.
And I
I
think
don't know, maybe that's a bad idea.
no,
but
not at all.
I don't know if you get what I'm trying to
The
say.
reasoning we start with this is kind of like curriculum development. We follow standards because they've been researched and we know that they're developmentally appropriate for this age group, for
Right.
this level. And similar with the survey questions, they've been developed with this specific group in mind, and it's been tested. And yeah, there might be a few questions that get a few parents upset, but for the most part, it's been tested, it's been tried, and again, it lends some credibility
I get that,
to what
but
we're trying to do.
I think some people have brought up here on this board other areas that should be touched
Yes.
upon in the survey, and I think they should go in there whether we have the permission from CDC or not to do it.
Oh, yeah, we
Because
don't
there's
need-
something
yeah,
that
yeah.
we think is important
Yeah.
to help us track these kids as they go through high school, and it does. A lot of these behaviors do start in middle school.
Yes.
Maybe 6th grade, not so much as 7th and 8th grade.
Well, we're noticing that these behaviors nationally are occurring earlier and earlier and earlier. 20 years ago, it would be ridiculous to suggest some of these questions,
Right.
but we know for a fact that
Yeah.
this behavior is occurring. So exactly what you're saying. And again, I'll just get a little guidance from Celeste. She is the expert in this area as far as do we add one section for us, or do we pepper the questions in the areas that make sense? But I can assure you that we can add as much as we want, we can cut as much as we want, and
You'll
really
show us
make
the
this
final
ours.
copy, right?
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely.
Go ahead, Ms. McKay.
Yeah, so Tony, I see on the agenda, it's approval of 2019. I guess my question is, what are you looking for from us tonight? The way it's written on our agenda, it's written as approval of 2019 Middle School Youth Risk Behavior Survey. Obviously, you've gotten feedback. Are you
Yeah.
still looking for approval tonight? Or are you looking to make some modifications and come back to see us? What's your thoughts?
Well, clearly modifications need to be made, and so I think we table it
Okay.
for a later date. And
Okay. I mean, I just want to go on record of saying, from my perspective, I support it in theory, and
thank you.
you definitely have my support, but I think that, yeah, we could do some tweaking based on great conversation from board members, from my perspective.
And I'm sure the next time around, hopefully, if I do my job well, then it'll be a little more quickly. We could approve it and
Sure.
vote on it. Go from there. So.
Ms. Raccio?
Could you also, when you return, bring the letter that would explain it to parents?
Yes.
And what their options are?
Yep.
Thank you.
Ms. Latar?
I was going to say that, but I'd also like to add the recommended administration dates as well, so that in the fall, the board has not only the revised survey, the letter that goes home to parents, and then the potential administration dates, so that you could make an ultimate final, decision.
That works.
Okay.
All right. And I just like to say, Ms. McKay said that she approved of having it in middle school, and I heard Mr. Votto say that, and I do too. So in theory, I think we're all with you, yes? Was-
Yes.
Yes? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think we're done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tony.
Okay. We're on part 4, curriculum and possible consensus. Proposed approval of the new high school CTE Business Finance Technology course, Advanced Business Management. So, Mr. Covey, you're up. for a few.
You had to do something with kids. They're on something.
Good evening. The first course is the Advanced Business Management, and the genesis of that course came from a discussion we had with business teachers and principals at the high school while doing scheduling. And we recognized that both the Accounting 2 and the Marketing 2 courses, which have traditionally been running in the last few years only at Lyman Hall, are under-enrolled. Not totally unenrolled, but enrolled enough that there's not enough students in them to make a full section. So 5, 6 students. So what's been happening is to give those students the opportunity, they would co-enroll them with the previous level course. So Accounting 2 students, the few students that want to take Accounting 2 would be enrolled in the Accounting 1, and the teacher would differentiate both courses at the same time. And that happened for both Marketing 2 and Marketing 1. And in some discussions we had, we recognized that there are a certain number of units that actually overlap. And then we thought, well, if we have 5 or 6 students in an Accounting 1 and 5 or 6 in a Marketing 2, or Accounting 2 and a Marketing 2, why not put them together since there are a lot of things that overlap? And we had a discussion, well, what would that course look like? And that's what you have before you. And we decided that we wanted to also, at the same time, up the rigor, and that's why we want to make it an honors level course so that it would be attractive for people to pursue that advanced coursework. In addition, by developing that, we also have the opportunity to further develop like a true pathway so that a student can come in and take a course like Business 101 as a freshman, Accounting 1 or Marketing 1 as a sophomore or a junior, and then even with a third level course in advanced business.
Go ahead, Ms. Havlick.
So the curriculum for this would be developed over the summer? How is this going to be?
So I plan to bring to you in June an outline of the curriculum, which will include, because we're borrowing the sections of the curriculum that are the same, so we're going to just merge them together.
Mm-hmm.
But what we had realized that at some point, especially towards the fourth quarter, which will be very much project development to actually anchor it with a some form of a project, that we would have to get that to you because the teachers will work on that at the end of this school year.
Okay,
So
refresh
we'd have
my
to bring
memory.
that in September.
What level are these courses at now, academic?
They're academic.
So how are you planning on, is that the only thing, the culmination of that project, or how are you going to increase the rigor in the curriculum?
Well, through the discussions, we also had some conversation where traditionally those courses just flat out just had an academic label on them. But it is more advanced and it is more rigorous in itself, and the teachers did share that the students say to them, wow, this is a lot more work or a lot harder than the other courses. So we actually felt that it warranted an honors level, and then we were going to try and expect the students with that work to take it to another level with more project. But that comes into the curriculum more in not in the content that they cover, but how they're expected to demonstrate it. So that would be just having new assignments and new projects that expect students to go deeper. So the outline of the curriculum, content-wise, is the same. It's just what we expect them to present and do with it, which would be more involved than transfer it to another level, especially with the combination or the cross-marketing / accounting.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Mr. Votto?
I just want to get this clear. So what you're going to be doing is combining Marketing 2 and Accounting 2 into one class.
Yes.
I thought I heard 1 and 2. But
I might have mixed up 1 and 2,
Okay, so
because when you
it's-
start talking 1,
all right,
2,
So
3.
you're making that one course.
Yes.
Now, so really, it's not going to be separate courses where a teacher is required to do 2 preps for one class. So that it will be a combined course in the curriculum. Okay.
Because the curriculum, when you hold them side by side, there are many similarities
Okay.
topically.
That's fine.
Marketing and accounting and that advanced business, they're very similar.
wish I could
And-
take those courses.
Is there any other, Ms. Raccio?
And this is going to run for 2021?
That's our goal, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, are we ready to take consensus? Go ahead, Ms. Raccio.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes,
Yes.
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 So I think that we have the next two items that both deal with medical terminology, and the first is obviously to add that course, and the second is the curriculum. So the genesis for this was obviously the examination of work we've done with our career pathways and also with our development of our apprenticeship programs and so forth, and talking with members of our business think tank and what is happening in the state and in the realm of healthcare, that this is a relevant and important course, and it becomes like the gateway course to other further courses down the road that we're looking at, such as pharmacy tech or medical assisting, et cetera. It's a UConn ECE course, and it is the gateway course at UConn. So any student that would pursue any medical area course, that course is required. So if you're going to go pre-med or physician assistants or PT, OT, that course is required. The curriculum is pretty much as a UConn ECE course. It's set. It's not the most exciting course, so I have it listed there. It's, and I don't want to insult foreign languages because I think those are far much more exciting because there's actually a culture and everything else that goes along with learning a language, but this is learning the language of medicine. So there's a lot of repetition of, oh, we're talking about the cardiovascular system. So let's talk about the roots and suffixes and the terms of the cardiovascular system. So then the next unit, you just move to, say, the lymphatic system, and then, well, now let's start all over again with the roots and terminology in that area. And so the curriculum is there. There is a robust amount of quizzes and tests and assignments that all go along with that have been provided to us from UConn that are required for the UConn ECE course. And that's where we're looking
Ms.
to.
McKay.
And,
So I'm just, do you think, Rob, a typical student a typical student that might take this course, do you think they've already gone, is it tied, I'm just trying to tie it to the CNA program. Do you think that you do the CNA and then maybe senior year take this course, or not tied at all? I heard you say that.
it possibly could. It's another way for them to.
But it's not necessarily tied to a patient-centered career path. That's the key.
No, so someone that has no interest of taking medical careers or CNA,
Yeah.
someone more science and biology oriented may be also interested in taking that course. And it's something we looked into also because a high school biology teacher could actually teach the course as well.
Yeah. So I kind of like that, about that it just opens up a whole new avenue for students that may not be in the patient-focused area. So I appreciate that.
And I think sometimes students take the CNA course and they learn exactly that
Yeah,
they
they're not.
don't want to work with
Sure.
patients. But yet
Sure.
it opens up the idea that there are so many other opportunities that aren't patient-centered.
I think it's fantastic that we have this opportunity for our students, so I applaud it.
What year?
Junior, senior?
No, is this going into effect?
Oh,
The
sorry.
goal is to try and get it in for the fall.
Oh, okay.
Ms. Raccio?
Are there any other ECE medical courses at this time?
No.
So this would be the first. And then, do we have teachers who are already ECE certified
We
in the
do.
science department that could take on?
Not in
type
the
of-
science department, but within our current medical careers.
Okay, who are ECE, so that would work. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I just want to make a real quick comment. I took medical terminology, and I have to tell you, learning the roots and the suffix and the prefix helped any kind of testing I ever did, whether it was language arts or anything. So it does help just more than just medical. All right.
Yeah, it's definitely Latin roots. It's an interesting
Right.
course, and just going over it and speaking with Mary Ellen Pettit about it, it's strangely interesting, but yet at the same time repetitive and somewhat boring. I was like, but yet I found it interesting. It was just weird. So yeah, if you have the interest in that and that's where you're going to go, it's definitely helpful. And if you've ever gone to your doctor and they've told you what you have and they speak
Yeah.
And it's the language of medicine, so.
All right. So we do these separate or together?
Oh, B and C?
Right.
I'm good doing it
So
together. I
you're
don't care.
okay together? All right, well, let's take consensus for B and C.
Yes.
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 Yes. All right, Rob, thank you very much. Okay. Christy, you're up?
I am.
High school curriculum. Textbook.
So the first of my 3 items is adoption of our Algebra 1 textbook. This is the 3rd textbook in a series that you have approved over the last 2 years. So 2 years ago, we approved the Big Ideas Geometry. Last year, we purchased the Big Ideas Algebra 2, and now this is the final book for Algebra 1. So we're replacing again to align with our current curriculum and also to align with the series of textbooks that we have at the high school. The teachers reviewed the Algebra 1 textbook actually last year in conjunction with the Algebra 2 textbook.
Any questions?
Yeah. Oh,
Okay.
go ahead.
Go ahead, Ms. Halleck.
I just noticed that we were missing the comparison sheets. In the past, we used to have like, it was strong or weak or what have you. I mean, we had like check-off boxes that were appended to the recommendation.
So I'm guessing that's because it was done last year with the Algebra 2, but we do all have all of that.
Okay,
We do.
I'm just used to seeing it as all.
Mhm.
I'm sure that the department went through it thoroughly and
Right.
and rated it. Sometimes it's easier for board members when they see that something was satisfactory or it has a lot of weaknesses that are identified.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
easier for us to,
This rated the strongest of the 3. We also reviewed the Glencoe and Envision, and both of those had weaknesses in areas that we felt were addressed with this textbook.
Ms. McKay?
Yeah, no, I'm just kind of, the fact that we approved Algebra 2 over Algebra.
1.
Yeah, well, how did
Because our
that
Algebra
work?
2 textbook was much older than our
Okay.
Algebra 1.
So this is a foregone conclusion,
We-
right? I
we
mean,
kind-
you would want to,
right. So we reviewed geometry.
and I'm okay with that.
No,
I'm not
that's
saying that
okay.
in a bad way.
We reviewed geometry independently of the
Yeah.
2 algebra textbooks. We did review the 2 algebra together.
Okay. It's all good. I'm good.
Any other questions?
I'm glad to see books.
Ms. Raccio?
Yeah, excellent.
So we have a 6-year workbook for this.
Yes.
Do we anticipate, because we only have the outline here, do we anticipate using the online workbook?
There's a 6-year subscription to the online, and we do get workbooks each of those 6 years for every text we purchased.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Okay, ready to take consensus?
Yes.
Yes.
yes,
Yes.
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 Okay, my next item is a course addition, and this would be to go into the course catalog next year for implementation 2021. Mathematics for Technology, Design, and Innovation. This course would be a 4th-year elective course option, and it would be a collaborative effort between my department and Rob's department for our advanced manufacturing students. It would be a class that's actually required for manufacturing students at our community colleges, and so it would be a dual enrollment opportunity for them to earn community college credit in that manufacturing field.
That's great.
Any questions?
Fantastic.
All right, let's take consensus.
Yes.
Yes.
yes,
Yes.
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 And then my third item is a course that you approved last year, was an addition. This is the curriculum for that course, so it was in our course catalog this year to run next year. Unfortunately, it will not be running. We had about, between the two high schools, only 16 students enroll in it, so there wasn't enough interest at each high school to run a section of it. But these are the units for this course if we do get interest in future years.
Any questions? Ms. McKay?
Yeah, so how many students do you need, Christy, from each school? I mean, that's sort of sad.
I think our baseline is 15
Okay,
at a school. We
So-
had about 16 between the two.
gotcha. So have we talked about, I'm not sure what would be the appropriate thing, but how we could talk it up, I mean, for students, and whether that's through guidance counselors or, the math department, or what, have we talked about how we might be able to bolster interest?
We do have ideas, and the management
Good.
team has talked about it. So, and I think that as that 4 credits of math comes into play, we'll see a little bit more interest
That's fair,
here.
yeah. So tonight, you're asking us to have it in place, even though we're not going to be able to run it right now because of enrollment, but you still see value to having it as an option to our students in the future?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So it's an alternative for students who don't necessarily want that AP calculus,
Right.
which is really for your STEM fields. This is a calculus to support students that are maybe going in the business fields, that may be going into some of the other sciences that don't need and that really intense calculus and that AP. So it's a college entry class
Sure.
for a lot of fields.
So at what point do we, let's say 2 years, I don't know what the number is, 2 years, 3 years, we don't have the numbers.
Right.
When do we,
Delete it.
well, I'm not even sure delete it or revamp it or look at it through a different lens,
It's hard to revamp calculus very much.
Yeah, that's true, that is true,
But
okay,
we-
fair enough.
We could.
You're
you know,
right.
We could look at, whether or not there is a need for it at that
Okay,
point.
okay.
So we
So
thought
what would be the magic?
It's something right now that we thought was a need.
Yeah.
And if we do see after a few years that it's not, then we'll
So
rethink it.
you'll try to keep it going for a couple years, at least 2 years? Because I'd like to see it get a fair shot,
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Ms. Raccio?
Is there any way that we could take the calculus class similar to what we just did with the previous item on the agenda and come up with a way to have it dual enrolled? Because that might.
That's our AP. Our
Yeah,
AP
but
is dual enroll.
You don't necessarily have to have AP. So if you have a student that might need calculus for college but isn't going the STEM route, you could still take a calculus community level college course and get that transferable credit without it being ECE or AP.
I don't know if that's an option at the community college, but I could look into it
Okay.
as a dual
I know we
enrollment.
can do that with English, so I don't see why we can't do that with math.
Any other questions?
Yeah, how
Mr.
many
Vetta?
children are in the AP class?
Next year at Sheehan, we have 2 sections of AP Calculus 1. We have about 30, low 30,
Wow.
30 or 31 between the 2 sections. And then we have 1 section of the AP Calculus 2 with about 22 students, I think, 22 or 24. At Lyman Hall, we have 1 section of each. I think about 24 students in the Calc 1 and closer to 20 in the Calc 2.
And those are all ECE too.
That's ECE with UConn and AP.
So they
Yes.
could do the ECE and opt out of the AP exam and,
Yep.
okay.
Oh, okay, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, you don't have to take, that's the
I didn't
advantage if
realize
you're
that.
dual enrolled.
See, I always found it funny
You don't
that
have to take the
Yeah, I
exam.
didn't realize that.
in many instances, we don't have an honors class because too many kids take the AP. A lot of
Correct.
kids take the AP for various reasons. And I always felt that sometimes there were students who wanted to be in the honors class because they don't
Yeah,
feel
so-
they're-
They get intimidated.
they don't feel
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
they don't feel they can do the AP.
Yeah, the
That's why I
AP,
find this strange that we have so few numbers.
the AP Calculus can be very intimidating.
Yeah.
This calculus is also an option for kids that are in our academic pre-calc, could go to this calculus course. They couldn't probably go to our AP. It would be too big of a jump for them.
So it's available.
It is,
Okay.
yep.
Well, that's
So
what we
it's
want.
our job to drum up interest and
Well,
make
that's
sure
it.
that it's
Yeah,
needed.
Agreed.
And if they don't want to go to AP, you want to talk them
Well,
into
that's
taking
it.
this.
That's that.
Right.
I just have a question for Ms. Latour. So if we have this thing approved, but we don't teach it, does it go out of the cycle, or does it get cycled back and go through curriculum rewrite again? How does,
It wouldn't need to go through curriculum rewrite again right now because
because
it
we're not
hasn't been
teaching
taught
it.
yet.
Right, right.
So
was
it would
just curious.
depend on, how much interest is in the course.
Okay.
But it would stay on the same, if the course doesn't run, it's not going to go through a rewrite because
Yeah.
you really do need to go through the curriculum with
Got it.
students to determine any revisions that may or may not be made.
And this
Um,
subject doesn't change too much, so.
Yeah, that's the good news.
No, it doesn't. So, as Christy said, we will do due diligence in making sure students are aware of the course and the expectations and kind of drum up business. And
Yeah.
hopefully through that, the course can run next school year. And then we can use the curriculum that's going to be approved, hopefully, and determine any revisions that might be made. But it takes a year or two with curriculum with students before you really know, if you want to revise it or not.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, let's take consensus.
Yes.
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 And yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christy.
Welcome. Thank you.
All right. Ms. O'Donnell, you're up.
I have a big pile, sorry. While I'm reading. Start here. I'm gonna send both books around so you guys can look at them. That's the chemistry and then this is the AP physics.
I wish you told us we were going to get all these heavy books tonight. I would have limbered it up.
Well, if value were determined by weight, these are really valuable. So the first book is the chemistry book. I think we looked at 7 different textbooks. The publishers haven't really caught up to the next gen science standards, so there really were very few that we reviewed that really were rewritten and aligned to NGSS. McGraw-Hill is one of the companies that's done a very good job of revising all of their textbooks, and Houghton Mifflin is another one. But the team really, really liked the Inspire chemistry, especially with the online tools that it has, especially with the assessments online. So this was definitely, they wrote Post-it notes all over it. They were like, this is our favorite, this is the one we want. So they were very excited. Our current chemistry book, I think, is from the 90s. I think it's probably one of the older textbooks that we have in the department. So definitely, the books were worn out. They weren't aligned to the new standards. So it definitely was time for us to invest in a new chemistry textbook.
Glad to hear.
Patty.
Questions? Oh, Ms. Roccio, sorry.
That's okay. So Mrs. Latour knows I was going to ask about this, and Mrs. O'Donnell, you're the perfect person to ask about this. The Iste Standards, since the state passed those last year, and since this book, as you mentioned, the teachers are really interested in doing the assessments and all of the online stuff, will we be able to have teachers who have been certified with the Iste Standards to do this?
To teach chemistry?
Right.
I don't believe any of our chemistry teachers are currently signed up to be ISTE certified. I do have a couple teachers in district who will be going, one at middle school and one at the elementary level, but I have not heard of any interest of any of the chemistry teachers being ISTE certified. But they certainly are aware of what the standards are, but no, they have not requested being certified.
And the Lexile level hasn't been released. When do we know if that's going to be released? Because this isn't an AP class.
It
This
is not.
It's down to an academic, so.
Yeah, this textbook is brand new, but they just anticipated a level of 1130, but the publisher hadn't gotten confirmation of what that level was. But it
So-
definitely fits within our range.
Of the range for 10th grade. But are
Yes.
we sure that if we're teaching academic and honors, right? This is an academic class?
It is both academic and honors level class.
So are we comfortable that that's appropriate?
Even with the other textbook that we chose last year, teachers do have to still make modifications with the reading. Science is very
I know.
heavy vocabulary based, so, there's not really a lot you can do about eliminating the vocabulary or changing the vocabulary, and I think that's really what bumps up the Lexile levels of these textbooks. So the science teachers do spend a lot of time working on science vocabulary and modifying text as needed,
Okay.
and using additional resources. We use both CK12 open source online textbooks, which come at more than one level, and we also subscribe to Discovery Education resources, so they also use those to help students.
Mr. Votto?
No, I don't have a question.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, Mr. Ross.
Yeah, why do we need 340 of these books?
Because that's how many students we have enrolled in chemistry across the two schools.
Is it that many, really? Oh, okay,
Any other questions?
thank you.
All right, we ready to take consensus? Go ahead.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
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 Okay, so the next one is the AP Physics text, and that's the James Walker book. That, yeah, made its way around. The current textbook is from 2007. The AP Physics teachers looked at textbooks last year, didn't find one that they felt met their needs or was NGSS aligned. But I know that College Board wants these textbooks. They don't require it be no more than 10 years old, but they recommend it. So I really pushed them, got some more books for them this year, and really had them look at the textbooks. And they felt that the James Walker Physics, they're both AP and ECE certified, and they felt that this really aligned well with both of those curriculum. There weren't a lot of choices for us in AP Physics. It was kind of limited, but.
All right, any questions? All right, let's say consensus.
Yes.
yes,
Yes.
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 And yes.
I want to make sure I do the curriculum in the correct order. I think the next one is.
Is it forensics?
Forensics,
Yeah.
yep. So the change on the forensics was that it currently is a G-level course, and the recommendation is to make it an A-level course. There were comments from students that even though they were very interested in going into forensics, pursuing forensics, wanted to take forensics, they wouldn't take the course because the G-level was going to impact their GPA. So after speaking to both of the teachers who teach forensics, we talked about strategies for if you have an A-level course, but you have students who have difficulty with reading, what would you do to modify the course? And so they're working through some of their course materials to make sure, the course originally was a G-level course, so they didn't feel it was going to be a struggle for them to develop those materials, but they were very excited about being able to bump it up a level to make it an A-level course. It is also now aligned to the next-gen science standards, and much better aligned between the two schools, because the curriculum hadn't been rewritten for a while, and things tend to kind of fall away over time as teachers change, and so now we're much more back in alignment with that course. And that all of these 4 courses they're currently running, but they'll be running changed for 2021. That's when the changes will go in the program of studies. Like
Okay.
the changing from the G level to the A level, those changes will go in, not for next year, but the year after.
All right, Ms. McKay?
Yeah, so nothing no, I don't want to say that, that's not right. So what changes is the going from general to academic. The text doesn't change, but obviously the curriculum the expectations of the curriculum is higher.
Yes,
Okay, and that's the major change.
yes.
And so currently, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, so do we know how many roughly students are taking this course as a general? Do we know?
I'm not sure how many
Yeah.
sections at each school, I don't have
Yeah.
that.
But so do we think from a percentage-wise, are we gonna, what's the goal, what's the hope? That percentage-wise, how many, what's the increase for participation?
We're hoping to have so many people taking forensics that we have to have a chemistry teacher teach it as well, because they're also certified, but we've never had to use them. We've only ever had biology teachers teaching the forensics.
So you're
course.
saying that there'll be added courses, added
That's the goal,
classes?
to add sections,
that-
yes.
Okay. Okay.
Anybody else?
Yeah, a quick one.
Mr. Votto?
So are there gonna be that many curriculum changes to make it academic that it can't be done for this fall? Is that what you're saying?
The NGSS alignment did really change just the way that the instruction is delivered, the way the assessments are done. It really did make a lot of major changes. Teachers are starting to try out some of the new lessons and resources, but I anticipate it really fully being the new curriculum in 2021.
Well, I think that's a good idea, if this coming year they pilot some of those things.
Yes.
To get them ready.
Yeah.
So make useful use of the time in a good way. Thank you.
We changed the science high school requirements slightly, right? From before, where it's still the same number of credits, but that you can
Yes.
choose something like this, then it can go towards your credit.
Yeah,
So-
we changed it to life science, physical science, and earth science to make sure that the students had a balance of those courses
Okay.
to fully cover the next-gen science standards.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, consensus, let's take,
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
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 and yes.
So the next course would be Astronomy 1.
I have
oh, no.
telescopes.
Which one?
Telescopes?
Yeah, astronomy 1,
Yeah.
telescopes, yes.
Yes, that is the first unit. So the Astronomy 1 course has been, again, rewritten to align with the next-gen science standards. It was one of those in the old course format. Now it's in the Understanding by Design format. We're not recommending any level changes or anything like that. This is just an alignment to the next-gen science standards. Astronomy 2, in case you're wondering, is currently being written, is not complete, and will probably come to you in the fall.
Any questions or comments? All right, let's
So
take,
that's basically transparent to our students, the changes on this.
Yes.
Yeah.
There were some adjustments to the astronomy course based on what's now covered in earth science as well, because the next-gen science standards changed some of what was covered in the astronomy unit, so
Gotcha.
that impacted some of these units.
Thanks.
okay. All right, let's take consensus,
Yes.
yes,
Yes.
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 and yes.
Okay, the next one is physical science with chemistry. This is a full-year course running at G and A levels. It is currently a full-year course running at G and A levels and is in the program of studies. It was a new course the prior year, but it was the very first course that science teachers had written, and they felt they had learned so much about NGSS in the last year and a half to 2 years that they really were not doing the course a service, and they wanted to rewrite it and make sure that it was much more tightly aligned to the next-gen science standards. So it went through a major revision, restructured the units. We split one of the units across 2 areas, and the waves and electromagnetic radiation unit was split. So it really was a major revision that they've been working on to make sure it was much better aligned. And the 2 teachers who are currently teaching it were the authors of the course. And they had been teaching it, so they had a lot of experience to draw from as they were revising the course.
All right, any questions, discussion? Okay, let's take consensus,
Yes.
yes,
Yes.
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 and yes.
Okay, so the last course for tonight is the Anatomy and Physiology course. The change for this course is that it will still currently run at the A level, but they wanted to add an H level for those students who wanted to go in the field, wanted a higher level. Again, we had students reporting, well, I don't want to take it because it's only an A level, mostly for kids who were planning on going into the medical fields, who wanted that higher level of rigor. And the teachers felt that there were numerous opportunities for them to differentiate based on level within the course. It's similar to that medical terminology course. It's a little bit dry. There's a lot of content knowledge and information that has to be gathered throughout the course, very high in vocabulary. And they kept it similar to how they had it before, where the units are done by system. And then they do other things integrated across when they, how the systems interact.
What's the name of the course?
Anatomy and physiology.
Oh, it is. Oh, I guess it says it right here, anatomy and physiology
on there.
units, yeah, new high school anatomy and
Did you
physiology.
say this is running as academic and then this is the honors part?
It is currently running as academic. The proposal is to add an honors section.
Okay, so, but
They
you'll
will
have
run
two.
as both.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Wait.
Mr. Havlick?
And how are you differentiating in the curriculum? You're going to do what, more in depth on,
More in depth on the content and the systems, the
so for example,
assessments.
you'd go more into detail of, the endocrine, and instead of just doing certain parts, you get more in depth on TSH or PTH or things like that, okay?
Yep. They'll do more on immunology, which is like a small part of one of the units. Now they feel like they can expand on some of those topics that came a little bit smaller, like serology. They can expand those out with the
Okay.
honors level course.
Any other questions?
Yeah, again, this is academic.
It's
Academic
currently
and
academic.
And honors.
We want it to be
Adding the
academic and honors.
Yeah, honors.
All right, anybody else? All right, let's take consensus.
Yes.
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 And yes. Thank you. Thank you very much.
This is just.
Okay. We're up to adoption of middle school reading units. Hello.
Hey there.
Hi, I have just if you could just pass them around. I put together just sort of a little bit of an FAQ on the new middle school reading units, as we're going with a little bit of a different approach with these units than we have in the past. These are units that I had a middle school committee review this year, as well as review our district ELA curriculum, and are proposing to adopt the units that are written by a team at the Reading and Writing Project at the Teachers College at Columbia University. So what I'm going to do is, in addition to the district UBD documents that you have, I have a copy of units that the teachers would also get that go along with them. I'm going to pass around so that you could see. There's one copy of each here.
What are these again?
So these are the actual units. And so the difference here from the Understanding by Design units that we typically create are usually we write them ourselves.
Right.
These we are proposing to adopt. They're written by the Teachers College. So what we did was I put together a district companion document to go along with each of the units that you got in your packets, and that includes the Common Core correlation, the district graduation standards and indicators alignment. It has our scoring criteria. It also has the proposed text for each unit in it. So the spiral units are a mapping or a pacing of the lessons in each of the units that the teachers will get, and really structures for the teacher a reading workshop model, which is a way to structure your reading instruction to include mini lessons and independent reads and book clubs and small group work. So the unit with the lessons, what we really liked about the way they're structured is it provides some consistency across the classrooms in how the units are being implemented, more so than the district currently existing units do. So I did give you a copy of the FAQs, just really quick on there for your reference down the road. On the first page, it maps out for you what the sequence of the units will be for grades 6, 7, and 8. The way the units are written is they're grades 6 through 8, so they can be used in a variety of different sequences or pacings depending on how the district might want to adopt them. So this pacing and sequence of units on the first page of the FAQ is what we have decided to go with, and was actually the recommended. They do give a recommended sequence from the Teachers College, so we just sort of followed their recommended sequence there. I addressed a little bit in the FAQs how we have a 2-year rollout plan at the middle school in ELA. We're going to be rolling out the reading units, most of them this year. There's 2 forthcoming units that we'll be bringing forward to the board when they're released over the next year, 1 in 7th grade and 1 in 8th grade. And then in year 2, we'll roll out companion writing units that complement the reading units. And they really kind of fit together in terms of the style of writing with the style of reading that you see in these units. Some other overarching differences between these units and our existing ELA curriculum in the middle school is we've shifted away from anchor texts in these units to more of a mentor text. And so a mentor text is just a short excerpt of a text that was selected specifically to teach a certain reading skill or strategy. So it's used as a model. The teacher reads it aloud to the class, models that particular skill or strategy, and then the students are transferring that skill or strategy to either their book club reads or their independent reads. So it's a way to transfer and spend less time reading aloud to the class and spending more time with the kids actually on task reading. Let's see here.
I need an explanation of that here.
I also did outline some of the professional development opportunities that the teachers at the middle school are going to be provided with in the upcoming year, including a full day in August with a trainer from the Teachers College, as well as some ongoing coaching throughout the year in their schools from a very good national literacy consultant that we've been working with this year, Kate Roberts. And I'm also going to be attending a week-long institute this summer to help support the teachers in the implementation of the units. Okay.
Any
Just
questions?
actually, I just have 2, I'm sorry, actually 2 more just sort of broad stroke pieces. Each grade level has a nonfiction unit. So we specifically make sure that the students have a nice exposure to nonfiction, and they also each have at least one book club focused unit. And then each of the units that have a text list listed in them, basically the committee took a look at what we already had in the middle schools. We repurposed to which units we felt like those texts would be the most conducive to the learning in the unit. And then we also reviewed lists that the Teachers College provided to identify additional titles to add some more contemporary titles and authors to each of the units. Sorry about that.
Oh, no, it's okay. Mr. Votto?
Okay. Right now, I'm looking at the historical fiction book clubs,
Yes,
grades
7.
7. So the actual, this packet,
The district
the district,
unit,
that
yes,
just-
yes.
It just says what, that tells you what should be done to teach that course or that unit. And this actually gives the teacher lessons, is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, yes. So the district UBD document that you have there in your
Right.
hand has the common core correlations. It has our district alignment with our
Okay.
indicators, all of our district alignment to
Okay.
the lessons in the spiral
And
unit.
every teacher will have a
Yes,
set of these.
yes,
And this actually gives them lessons and ideas of what kind of lessons. All right.
yes,
Now go back to the mentor anchor sets.
yes,
Now, an anchor, when you say anchor, I imagine that means there are specific books that the kids read.
Yes.
All through,
yes,
the whole book.
yes.
But you're saying you're still going to do that.
We are not going to be reading the whole class anchor text in these units. They're going to be selecting short excerpts of short stories, an excerpt from a full-length novel. that way, and use that as a model text to teach a particular skill that's central to the unit. Really what we were looking to do, and the reason why it's written that way, is to maximize instructional time.
I get that.
Yeah,
But in
Yep.
other words, you have under that same section I referred to, I
Yep.
survived the Nazi invasion of 44. That's
Yep.
the textbook. I mean, that's
a book club title.
club.
Yeah.
Now, are the kids required to at least pick one of these and read the whole book? No.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
The book club
That's what I
titles,
said.
they'll be reading at least 2 in each unit,
All right, that's
in the
what I
book
needed
clubs,
to
yep.
get clarified. Okay.
Yep. And they'll have a choice of
Okay,
them off the list.
gotcha. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Ms. Raccio?
The mentor text that will be used as well as the videos, will those all go out to parents in advance?
The mentor text in the video, yes. Yep.
And then the book club will go out to parents at a separate, like how many notifications would parents get for a
So
year?
probably 1 per unit. So the teacher would include any of the mentor texts, which includes videos, short stories, poems, and then understand that in each unit there's a long list of book club titles. So typically what our teachers do was they'll give the kids, you know, a shorter subset of titles off of a list, ask them for, you know, what are their top choices, and then from there would send those home as part of the same parent notification so that they're getting 1 per unit, like we currently do.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions? I just had a quick one. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Ms. Havlick.
No, cost of implementation of this?
The total?
Yes.
Well, we have quite a bit of purchasing of titles to do, so dependent on publisher cost, you know, we have money set aside for level text. Correct. So the units themselves are not the expensive part of this curriculum implementation. It is the individual book titles, because
Right.
we need to have enough variety within each unit, and we need to have enough copies to sustain all the students in the grade levels. So, you know, it could be anywhere between, like a textbook, 50,000 to 75,000, depending on availability of titles, hardcover, softcover. Mrs. Laudadio is doing a tremendous job tracking down the best price from different publishers in order to make sure that we're being as cost-effective as possible. This is for both middle schools, it's for all grade levels. It's so that we have the ability to have enough text for every student to have various levels within each grade level, and to have choice as well, which is important.
All right.
Okay, Ms. Raccio?
If we haven't finalized the list, can we also be cognizant of making sure we can look at books that have audio versions, so we're
Mrs.
the most
Laudadio
inclusive?
spent the larger part of today tracking down the titles that are within these units, and there are very few that are not on the audio version, so she has been doing that.
Thank
Yes.
Okay.
Mrs. Levac, to your point, we've been, and I shouldn't even say we, Ms. Latour has been very strategic in her budgeting this year to make sure that this was not going to be a burden on the school district this year or next year.
Okay.
So compliments to her working so very hard to isolate the funds without having to do away with other opportunities, but utilizing grant funds in
I
probably the most
I
judicious
appreciate
way
that.
that
I
I've
think
ever
that's-
seen in my life.
I've been
So-
pinching my pennies.
She is really tough. She could teach personal finance in a very
And that's a
positive
lot
way.
coming from you.
Yeah,
'Cause
she's
you both are
tough. So the other thing I just do want to mention, if I may, if I could just say this, I've obviously get to talk to other superintendents in other places about English language arts, and it's near and dear to my heart because I taught it. Middle school is very important to me. The thing is that what we do in order to inform parents of the books that are being taught, of the resources being used, is probably second to very few, if any, in the state of Connecticut. So I just want to really go on record that I can't thank enough all of our teachers for their support, all of our curriculum people for their support, because that is really a lot of additional work that it's good work, but it's certainly not happening statewide. And just because it's not happening statewide doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. But I think that it's just another one of those things that might go unnoticed because people just see it happen. They just think, oh, well, that's what everybody does. It doesn't. There's a lot of really, when I shared this with one parent who I know from another, just they were like, oh, well, that would never happen. I said, well, I'm not saying it should or shouldn't, but it does happen in Wallingford. So I just want to say thank you to everyone, especially, obviously our curriculum people, but also our teachers, because I really do think we try to inform parents to the highest level possible, and I think that's really a good thing to do. And I think it makes them an active member, and hopefully it also encourages them, to read with their child and take interest in what he or she is reading. I think if that could be a residual effect, that'd be great. I'm not sure that happens 100% of the time, but that'd be fantastic.
All right, Mr. Vada?
Just a quick clarification to make sure I'm correct in my thinking. When I look at some of these book titles,
Yes.
I notice that you have the black, orange, and whatnot. That is what steers them toward where their need is from the early, correct?
Yes, yeah.
So if they need to acquire to the orange level, they know what book they should be reading,
Yep.
correct?
Yep.
All right, and I also wanted to make somebody asked about the audio. If there is no audio, that doesn't mean the book is not going to be offered or used, the title, correct? If there's no audio version.
Correct.
Right,
Right, and of all the units, I think there were only 6 that didn't have audio.
okay.
And it was more, some of the more, the nonfiction titles.
I mean, this is really prescriptive. And how did you decide if a book was purple or orange or?
We have a school pace. It's the system, the online database that goes along with the ERLA,
Oh,
and they have a search. Yeah.
Okay. I just had one question. You have a lot in here. There's like, some of these units are 7 weeks, and you have like 21 lessons. Is that doable?
It is doable. So the actual recommended is 5 weeks and no more. But because we're on the block schedule, we worked out minute-wise,
Okay.
and also considering it was year 1. Give them
Okay.
they're pretty adamant about not stretching out the lessons, that they need to be pretty concise.
All right. Thank you. Any other questions? All right, can we take consensus?
Yes.
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 Yes,
Well, yes.
Thank you.
this is a great amount of work. Thank
A
you.
lot of work, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have anybody for public
All
comment?
of you.
So just come up and say your name and your address, please.
Hi, my name is Sydney Kareem, and I live at 125 Ridgetop Road here in Wallingford. And I passed out an analysis of the survey that was sent out to students a couple weeks ago. Hopefully all of you should have it, that way you can refer to it while I'm speaking. So the topic of this analysis is the high school merger discussion at the Wallingford Board of Education. And so in order to gauge student sentiment about the final 3 options of the facility study, the NHS Leadership Committee chose to survey the student body to gather more detail about their findings on the Board of Ed discussion. The survey was administered to 183 students who responded to the questions using Google Forms. The data was analyzed by myself, Raina Esch, and the Leadership Committee of the NHS. 3 findings emerged that give specific insight to student sentiment about the 3 options provided for the future of Sheehan High School and Lyman Hall High School. Our first finding was that the majority of Sheehan students prefer an option in which both high schools would remain open and separate. When given the opportunity to choose their preferred option, the majority of students, 95.6%, preferred an option in which both Sheehan and Lyman Hall High School would remain open. The most preferred option by Sheehan students is option 1, which 58% of students favor, and the second most preferred option is option 2, which 38% of students favor. Only 3% of students chose the option that included a merging of high schools. This indicates that the large majority of Sheehan students desire that both high schools in Wallingford remain open and in use. And you can refer to the chart right beneath that to see where that came
Can I
from.
interrupt you and ask
Yeah,
you
of
a
course.
question? When you gave this to or whoever gave this to the students, what information was given with this survey? Anything, or?
Yes.
Was it detailed information? Was it just, hey, do you want this, this, or this?
Yeah, so at the top of the survey, there's a section where you can kind of provide precursory information so that they can refer back to that as they're taking the survey. So in that, we condensed what was sent out to the students by Dr. Menzo that kind of explained the 3 options, and we gave 1 to 2 sentences describing each option as well as the cost of each option. That way the students would understand exactly what they were talking about as they were going through and answering the questions.
Okay.
So our second finding was that students are mainly concerned with the following 4 factors: the merging of the high schools, renovations, cost, and construction periods. When deciding which option they preferred, students considered whether or not the option required a merge, whether or not they believed large renovations were necessary, the cost of the option, and the construction period that the option would require. This is indicated by the fact that all but 7 students mentioned one of those elements. These are the 4 factors that are most concerning to students. So I have provided 3 bar graphs that show the qualitative information. And so in the first graph, you can see that 106 students replied saying that they would want option 1 and gave reasons as to why. So 96 students said that the reason they chose option 1 was because it kept 2 schools. 48 students said that the reason they chose that is because it conserved money. 13 said that they felt large renovations were unnecessary, and that's why they chose option 1. And 6 said that they chose option 1 because they felt it would avoid long construction periods that would interfere with class time. For option 2, the graph includes responses from the 69 students that chose option 2. And 31 said that they chose option 2 because it kept 2 schools. And 37 said option 2 because they felt large renovations were needed for both schools. And for option 3, only 7 students out of the 183 chose option 3 as their most preferred option, and 4 of them said that this was their most preferred option because it would save resources in the long run. 2 of them said they felt it would improve education, and 1 person said they felt it would improve athletics. So on the next page, what you see is called a word cloud. And so what we did was we put every single response into this word cloud generator, and it made the words the largest that had the highest frequency. So the words that were mentioned the most are the ones that you see biggest in this word cloud. And those responses came to the question, why do you feel the option you chose is best? So this is just another way for you to see the information that's provided in the bar graphs. And our final finding was that the majority of Sheehan students feel strongly about their opinion regarding the facility study. So most students feel either strongly or very strongly about the option that they prefer. This indicates that most students did not choose the preferred option carelessly, but rather feel quite passionately about the option that they chose. So in conclusion, the majority of Sheehan students prefer either option 1 or option 2. This indicates that the majority of Sheehan students prefer an option in which both Sheehan and Lyman Hall remain open and in use by students. The 4 main concerns of students include the merging of the high schools, renovations, cost, and construction periods, and those are the main things that they considered when choosing which option was most preferable for them. When making this decision, the majority of students felt strongly about the option that they chose and did not make a decision carelessly. So if you guys have any questions, I would be happy to answer.
Ms. McKay.
So, nice presentation, thank you. And I'm sure clearly a lot of work went into this, so I appreciate that. So, I'm assuming you invited, I want to talk about the number of students that participated.
Mm-hmm.
So, you must have said to the entire school body, I'm asking, I guess, how did you administer it or solicit students to want to take it? That, if I understand, I want to make sure I understand correctly, 183 responded.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so how did you get it out there?
Yeah, so Mr. Zacco sent out the survey for us twice.
Okay.
Once he sent it in the middle of an advisory period so that teachers can tell their students while they had the free time, why don't you take this survey? And we actually got 256 responses when that happened, but unfortunately, the students were accidentally given options to edit the survey as well, and so all of our responses were deleted, which was really defeating, but we sent it out again, and so that time was when we got 183 responses, and we just kind of kept saying it on the announcements, if you haven't yet, please take the survey. We went around to lunch waves, and that was how we were able to get the 183.
Great. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. So did they actually physically hand it in, or was it taken online, or was it through Google Docs, or how did they do that?
It was through the app that is provided through Google called Google Forms, where you
Okay.
can just go in and make the survey there.
Gotcha.
So that was how we sent it out, because everyone has a Google account. So we
Perfect.
figured that would be most effective.
Perfect. So every student had the opportunity?
Yes.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Well done.
And that was an increase because the first time you administered it,
Yes.
you had like, I don't remember the exact number, but it was.
74.
Oh,
So this was good.
Yeah,
more
this
than
was
double.
a lot better.
Much
So
better
that was,
sample
that
size.
was good.
Mhm.
Yeah, very
Yeah.
good. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay.
So next, I would like to invite up Maureen Lynch to give you greater insight into student sentiment. So.
Oh, sure.
Hello, my name is Maureen Lynch. I'm a junior at Sheehan. I live on 130 High Hill Road in Wallingford. So I just wanted to start off by saying that the second part of our survey was an opinion section where students could write in exactly what they felt about each option. And we got a lot of great responses. I have paragraphs here that are included in that packet. But I'm just going to read 3 of these to you right now. So our first one that's actually at the top for our sentiment for option 1 is, it doesn't make much sense to make kids to have to travel that far in the morning. There isn't going to be enough parking. I'm sorry, these weren't edited beforehand. Even though it's a rule for kids not to be on the bus for over an hour, that's just not realistic due to traffic and trains. It will take some kids 20 plus minutes to get to school in the morning. The crosstown rivalry creates a sense of camaraderie within the school, which makes coming here every day much more enjoyable. So our second response is, if you merge the schools, it'll be too many people in one building. It'll increase the amount of hallway traffic and the amount of anxiety the students have. Students should know people that they graduate with, and if there's too many people, they cannot do that. So many people will lose their jobs if you merge, and this option is most cost effective. Our last one for option 1. It would be nice to graduate with the same people we have grown up with, and it is also the most efficient option since it's the cheapest and we wouldn't have to worry about different transportation. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
So I'd like to share some of the responses from option 2, and
Can
there's
you-
also
Raina,
one
can
on
you
the
just
back.
state?
Oh, I'm sorry. My name's Raina Esch. I live on 15 Terrell Farms Way.
Thank you.
Sorry. Okay. First at the top, from a senior at Sheehan, she says, putting all of Wallingford's high school students into one building will cause a lot of issues. We have a wonderful family here at Sheehan, and I want future students of Sheehan to have the same experience that I did. This is an amazing community, and putting all of the students into one building will break what we have at each school. We would also lose traditions like Powder Puff, which bring the town together. There are alternatives, but nothing will replace what we already have. Second to the bottom, a freshman here says, I feel as if the younger generations should be able to experience the same excitement when we have crosstown rival games. And by upgrading the school, every student will be able to have a nicer school environment. And at the bottom, smaller schools provide better education. Smaller classes would provide a better climate for students to thrive. A big school would mean that students would be strangers with most of their school. Students who live on the Sheehan side would have to commute much farther to get to Lyman Hall, which would be impractical to those who already commute by walking or biking. And then on the back, we did want to share, we only got one open-ended response for option 3, and this young man said, it is best for the future of Wallingford in terms of infrastructure and education. Wallingford could combine both the best teachers from each high school and create a competitive educational environment. So we just wanted to share a few of the responses. These are only a few. We got so many more, but these were some of the thoughtful ones that we thought we would share.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I just want to, just for the record, I just want to say that we have 3 board members that are not here tonight, but I've got these surveys, and I'm going to ask Dr. Menzo because we receive packets every week from Dr. Menzo's office. So I'm just going to ask Dr. Menzo to make sure that each of the 3 board members that aren't here this evening will get your results so that they'll also be included in the information, okay? Yep.
All right,
My
Mr. Russ.
Yes, I'd just like to thank you, students. I know how much work went into this and how much thought, and I'm really impressed. Thank you very much.
And I'd like to just say that when the real survey goes out to the community, I hope that you will be as involved in getting people to fill it out.
Well, and I would like to thank Sydney and her counterpart Drew over at Lyman Hall for being another set of eyes, and hope, on the SWOT that we're going to be putting out as part of the packet for the survey. Once we figured out where it was and that it got shared properly, once we got through that technology challenge, then Sydney got right on it, and she offered very thoughtful feedback, as well as Drew, and we were able to incorporate that within the final document, which I know the board all got this past weekend, to include. We're figuring out what shape and form it's going to look, because it's a very long document, as you know, having reviewed it. But we're very pleased because we believe that that gives the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats for each of the three options. It was also vetted by the teachers union, by the administrators union, and through central office. So we feel that it reflected everything that has been discussed at these meetings. We thought back and we looked back at minutes too, to make sure that if parents came out, we reflected their comments too. And they all kind of fall into certain buckets. So we believe that that'll help give another layer of context for the person or people taking the survey. But I echo the sentiment that once we do get this out, we do need everybody's help getting this to the community. There'll be an update, as I shared with Sydney in an email yesterday or last evening, was that there will be an update to all families on the budget process, as well as the survey, with the timelines that the survey is going to go out, hopefully by May 20th, with the return date of June 17th. And then the data will be presented to the board at its August board meeting, I believe on the first day of school next year. So we're trying to map this out strategically so that we have enough time to make sure everything is analyzed appropriately. Plus the summer is difficult. We didn't want to set up a meeting when people are on vacation and then people feel, oh, well, they talked about it when we weren't in town. That's not our intent whatsoever. But that's all going to go out to all families and all students in their student emails. I believe I scheduled it for Wednesday. So that'll go out for everybody, and then that'll be incorporated into the new survey, the SWOT in particular. But again, I want to thank the support of the students in that regard, because I just want to make sure that we send out something that we could all say, oh, well, we're proud of that, at least that document, that it reflects the conversation, the rich conversation that has occurred thus far. So
Okay.
Thank you.
Any more public comment? Any more questions, comments? All right, if not, then the meeting's adjourned.